I got home late that Thursday night, arms full of groceries and a half-melted iced coffee I'd grabbed out of habit. I remember thinking how quiet the house was. Too quiet. Not just the usual end-of-the-day kind of stillness. This felt hollow. The lights were off, no music playing, no smell of dinner, no sign of Lena. I called out her name once, then twice. Nothing. I flipped the light switch in the hallway, and that's when something shifted in my gut. Her coat wasn't on the rack. Her sneakers weren't by the door. The framed photo of us at Yosemite, gone from the entryway table. I moved through the room slowly like I was walking through someone else's home. Kitchen, spotless. Bathroom, empty. No toothbrush. No hair ties. Bedroom? I just stood there. Her side of the closet had been cleaned out. Not a single blouse, scarf, or shoe left behind. The drawer where she kept her wedding band during showers. Open and empty. It was like she'd never been there at all. There was no note. No goodbye text. Not even a missed call. Just absence. I sat down on the edge of the bed, still holding the keys in my hand like I hadn't figured out I wasn't coming home to the life I thought I had. I wasn't angry. Not yet. First came confusion, and then silence. Then that sinking feeling that maybe she'd been planning this all along, and somehow I never saw it coming. The first night I didn't sleep, not even a minute. I just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, holding my breath, like somehow that would keep everything from collapsing. But the silence was deafening. The bed felt colder, the air heavier, and the house empty. At first I was confused. Maybe she had a panic attack. Maybe she needed space. Maybe I pushed too hard without realizing. I told myself everything I could to make sense of her disappearance. But then came the anger. And anger makes you see things differently. I started replaying moments I'd ignored. Little things that didn't feel important back then. But now they screamed at me. Like the night she came home late, smelling like someone else's cologne. She brushed it off. Client dinner. Or how she started showering as soon as she walked through the door. Something she never used to do. She said she felt gross after work. Then there were the texts. A guy named Brandon. Supposedly an old college friend. I remembered asking about him once. She laughed and said, "You're not the jealous type, are you?" And I wasn't, because I trusted her. But looking back, those messages were always a little too vague, a little too flirty. Things like, "Wish you were here instead of him." And tonight was amazing. Same time next week? At the time, I thought it was some weird inside joke. I didn't question her, because when you love someone, you give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's what destroyed me. She stopped wearing her wedding ring, blaming it on eczema. Stopped joining the Sunday brunch with my family. Too tired, she'd say. She stopped leaning in when I kissed her. She stopped reaching for my hand. She stopped looking at me like I mattered. I was so busy making excuses for her, I didn't realize I was watching the slow death of our marriage in real time. And then came my birthday. She didn't come home. No text, no call, nothing. I stayed up until 2 a.m. waiting, thinking maybe she was planning some surprise. Maybe she was decorating the living room or hiding a cake somewhere. At 3 a.m., I blew out the candle on a single cupcake I had bought for myself and went to bed. She never showed. The next day, she was gone. No note, no trace. Just an empty closet and my name on the lease. Still, I didn't report her missing, because deep down, I knew she wasn't. She just didn't want to be found. Days passed, friends stopped asking questions. My mom cried on the phone and said, maybe she's just overwhelmed. But I knew better. And then, one night, I logged into our shared cloud storage. Just habit. There was a folder, buried half hidden, labeled work stuff. I clicked. What I found made my stomach drop. Screenshots, photos, flight bookings, a two-way ticket booked under her maiden name, Lila Grace. Departure date? The day after my birthday. Destination? A coastal city 5 hours away, same city where Brandon lived. I found a text that shattered me. Brandon, does he know yet? Lila, not a clue. He's sweet, but clueless. Clueless. That's what I was to her. All those nights I stayed up waiting, all those mornings I made her coffee, all those little notes I left on the mirror just to make her smile. I thought we were a team. I thought she was on my person. Now I saw it for what it was. One long, slow con. The worst part? I remembered how we used to be. how she'd hum along to Fleetwood Mac in the kitchen, how she'd sneak into my home office just to sit on my lap and kiss me while I worked, how we danced in the rain once, barefoot on the front lawn, laughing like idiots. We had love. Or at least I did. She had a plan. That night I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat on the floor of our living room, surrounded by silence, staring at the half-decorated wall she never finished. The house felt like a hollow version of everything we were supposed to build. I stayed up until morning, watching the sun rise through the same window we once sat under drinking wine and dreaming about the future. Now, there was no future. No more dreams, just a man and an empty house. And somewhere in that stillness, something inside me changed. No more excuses, no more waiting, no more hoping she'd come back. She was done with me, but I wasn't done with her. A week later, I got a phone call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I hadn't been in the mood to talk to anyone. But something made me pick up. "Derek?" the voice on the line asked. Male. Calm. "Yeah. This is Brandon." Silence. I stood frozen in the kitchen, staring at the coffee pot like it might explain what the hell was happening. "I'm guessing you've figured out what's going on by now," he said. I didn't say anything. He chuckled. "Lila told me you were the quiet type." My chest tightened. "She's doing great, by the way. New city suits her. The beach, the food, the company. It's all been really good for her." There was something smug in his tone, like this wasn't just an update, it was a flex. "And your house?" he added. "Incredible space. Love the open kitchen. We've had some good times there." That's when it hit me. They weren't just gone. They were living in my house. I blinked, heart thudding. "You're in my house?" he snorted. "Technically Lila's. She said you put her name on the lease last year, remember?" I had. For tax reasons, to feel more equal, because I believed in us. I hung up. No yelling, no threats, just click. I stood there for a long time, letting the weight of it settle. That house was my childhood home. My dad left it to me. I'd renovated it myself. Every beam, every fixture, every nail, I'd touched all of it. And now 2 liars were living in it like they'd earned it. That was the moment. The switch flipped. She thought I'd break, thought I'd beg her to come back or disappear quietly. She didn't think I'd fight. She was wrong. First I called my lawyer. Turns out Lila wasn't on the deed, just the lease. And that lease, month to month, which meant I could terminate it with 30 days' notice. So I did. I sent a formal letter delivered by courier giving them 30 days to vacate the premises. No drama, no confrontation. Just cold, clean paperwork. A week later, I got an email from Lila. No hi, no how are you, just, "You can't do this. Brandon and I are established here. You're being petty and vindictive." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to my lawyer and changed the locks code for the day the notice expired. Then I waited. I imagined them scrambling, checking on legal loopholes, trying to find some technicality to fight back. But there wasn't one. Brandon tried to call twice. I blocked him. Lila emailed again. "You're not who I thought you were." Funny, because neither was she. In the meantime, I took steps they hadn't seen coming. Froze our shared bank account. Reported her for unauthorized withdrawals she made days before disappearing, ones that didn't match our typical spending. Got copies of all the security footage from the gas station near the house that captured her and Brandon loading boxes into his car. And then I let it go. I didn't watch their social media, didn't obsess over where they go next. I just focused on getting my life back. The day they were supposed to be out, I showed up at the house. There were trash bags piled on the curb. The lawn was dead. The air smelled like cheap cologne and burnt food. Brandon stood on the porch with a smug look. Lila was behind him, arms crossed. "You think this makes you the bigger man?" he said. I looked at him for the first time. Really looked. He was nothing special. Some aging frat boy with a receding hairline and a superiority complex. I stepped past him and walked inside. My house was a mess, scuffed floors, sticky counters. One of the bedroom doors was cracked at the hinge. They'd tried to leave a mark. But all I saw was desperation. 2 people who thought they had won, clinging to a version of reality they built on lies. "You have 10 minutes, I said. Lila glared at me. "I loved you, you know." I met her eyes. "Number you used me. And now I'm done letting you." They left. No final words, no big goodbye. Just two shadows disappearing into a car with too many dents and not enough gas. I stood in the doorway long after they were gone, staring at the mess they left behind. But I wasn't angry anymore, because for the first time in weeks the house was mine again. And so was I. The eviction notice hit harder than they expected. For a week they went quiet. Then came the emails. First from Brandon. Impersonal, self-righteous, full of copy-pasted legal jargon. He claimed tenancy rights, citing some article he clearly didn't fully understand. Said I had no authority to force them out on such short notice. My lawyer laughed. He's quoting laws from another state, she said. Nice try, though. Next it was Lila. Her tone was different. Not smug, not confident, just desperate. You're really doing this? I thought you were better than this. I miss how kind you used to be. That one hit a nerve, not because I missed her, but because I remembered how hard I tried to be kind. Through all the red flags, all the late nights, all the slowly fading affection, I'd bent over backwards trying to keep something alive that she'd already buried, and now kindness was something she tried to weaponize, like it was a weakness. I didn't reply, no more justifying myself, no more explaining why I was done. I changed the lock codes on the exact day the notice expired, replaced the front door lock with a new smart system, bought fresh paint for the master bedroom, the same one they'd shared without shame. I chose a color called Ocean Fog. Cool, clean, free of memory. The mattress, gone. I dragged it out myself and left it on the curb, tossed the sheets, pillowcases of the dusty box of keepsakes from our honeymoon she hadn't even touched in years. It wasn't just cleaning, it was clearing. The house had felt like a graveyard for weeks. A silent museum of everything I thought my life was supposed to be. But now, bit by bit, I was taking it back. I replaced the dining chairs, took down the art she picked out, donated the espresso machine she loved but never cleaned, bought myself a cheap second-hand couch and a record player from a local thrift store. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. For a while I still heard echoes. Her laugh in the hallway, the clink of her bracelets as she typed, the soft hum of her singing in the shower. Grief plays tricks on you. But grief, like anything else, fades. One night I walked past the living room mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. Not because he looked broken, but because he didn't look broken anymore. So I opened my laptop. No plan, no outline, just a need to get something out. The title came first. Rebuilding After Betrayal. I started writing, not to shame her, not to vent, just to remember. And process. I wrote about the morning after she left, about the cold bed, the fridge full of groceries I'd bought for a dinner that never happened, about finding her texts, about realizing I'd spent months loving someone who no longer saw me. It wasn't poetic. It was messy, raw, honest. I didn't care if anyone read it, but someone did. Then another, then a dozen. They commented things like, "This was me a year ago," or "I've never told anyone this, but..." And just like that, my pain wasn't a void anymore, it was a bridge. I kept posting, weekly, short reflections, memories, lessons, not to get over her, but to come back to myself. Eventually, the blog got picked up by a small self-help site. They featured my post called, "Your house is not haunted, it just needs new light." That one resonated, especially with men. Guys who'd been told to man up or move on without space to actually feel the loss. They wrote me emails. One said, "I bought paint yesterday. First time I made a decision without asking her." I cried reading that, because I knew exactly how that felt. The house I once dreaded waking up in had become my sanctuary. The kitchen where a betrayal had brewed now smelled like coffee I brewed for myself. I even put in a small garden, just herbs and tomatoes. But every sprout felt like a middle finger to the version of me who once thought he couldn't grow anything without her. The house hadn't changed. But what it meant had. It used to be the place she left. Now it was the place I reclaimed. The walls didn't whisper anymore, they breathed. And when I walked through the front door at night, I didn't feel like I was entering a memory, I felt like I was coming home. A few months later I got coffee with an old mutual friend, someone who hadn't picked sides, just quietly stayed in the background. He stirred his drink and looked at me like he was weighing something. Then he said, "I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, but Lila and Brandon broke up." I blinked. It didn't land the way I thought it would. No satisfaction, no silent fist pump, no vindication, just Nothing. I nodded. Okay. He waited. That's it? Yeah, I said, and that's it. There was a time when I would have obsessed over that news, played it on repeat in my head, imagined their arguments, their unraveling, maybe even hoped she regretted everything. But not anymore. By then, I'd already let go of a needing to win. I didn't need karma to do the heavy lifting. I'd already walked through hell and built a home on the other side. Let her chase apologies that never come. Let him move on like nothing happened. That wasn't my burden anymore. I had a life. A messy, quiet, honest life. I had new routines, Saturday hikes, Sunday pancakes, a playlist I'd made with 0 songs that reminded me of her. I had peace. And more than anything, I had myself. Intact, whole, and no longer waiting to be chosen. Because here's what betrayal teaches you. It doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your narrative, the version of life you thought you were living. Gone. The version of you that bent, molded, compromised to keep something alive that was already dying. Gone too. But in that wreckage, if you're brave enough to face it, you find clarity. You learn that closure doesn't come from someone explaining why they hurt you. It comes when you stop needing the explanation. It comes when your peace becomes louder than your pain. People ask me later, if she came back, what would you say? And honestly, I wouldn't say anything. Not out of anger, but because the version of me that needed to speak is no longer here. He's busy repainting walls, writing blog posts, growing tomatoes, living. So if you're out there standing in the ruins of something you thought was forever, if you're scrolling through old messages, rereading old promises, waiting for them to see what they lost, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me. You are not what they walked away from. You are what you walk toward next. And if you're brave enough to rebuild, brick by painful brick, there will come a day when the house that once held your grief will become the very place that holds your freedom. Love yourself enough to walk away from betrayal, even if it means walking alone. Because sometimes the loneliest road is the one that leads you back home.